Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to Purposes Crossed, where I hope that people who are called by Jesus for different purposes cross paths and exchange ideas. In this video, we continue with our series of reflections on the Sermon on the Mount. In the previous video of the series, we saw how Jesus commands us to do the exceptional thing of loving people, especially when we cannot expect anything in return. He tells us that unconditional love is what sets his disciples apart from other humans. Jesus is upping the ante with each verse, it seems, and now, at the end of chapter 5, he tells us, "Be perfect, therefore, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." This verse, smack dab in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, has proven to be one of the most burdensome verses in the entire Bible. How in the world does Jesus expect us to be perfect? As Christians, we are keenly aware of our frailty. We know that we live flawed lives. We sin by doing the things that we know we should not do, as well as by not doing the things that we know we should do. Every day we struggle to be obedient to God, and if we are honest, every day we fall short of the life to which God has called us. How then can Jesus command us to be perfect? How can he have such an unrealistic or seemingly unrealistic command for us? Two approaches have predominated Christian thought. First, some Christians have said that Jesus would not command us to do something that we could not do. Hence, it would follow that we can be perfect. Christians who take this approach then try to define what perfection might be. And they would draw a distinction between perfection on the one hand and sinlessness on the other. Perfection, they would claim, does not imply sinlessness, for Jesus would not command us to be what we by nature are not. However, no matter how forcefully they insist that perfection is not sinlessness, they are never able to define perfection in specific terms except by reference to sins. So John Wesley, for example, in his essay Plain Account of Christian Perfection, writes, quote, "A Christian is so far perfect as to not commit sin," unquote. The tremendous burden that this places on a Christian can well be imagined by those of us who struggle daily with sins. If I am already perfected to such an extent that I can completely avoid sin, then what do I make of the fact that I still do sin? And what does the word perfection mean if it does not extend to include even my proclivity to sin? What kind of perfection is it that allows me to defile myself with sin, to abuse other humans through my thoughts and deeds, and to disobey the God I have decided to obey? A second approach works from the fact of this struggle. Christians who take this approach have said that since we do continue to sin till we die, Jesus was not being literal. That is, Jesus was voicing a desire rather than issuing a command, and Christians are to try to fulfill Jesus' desire, though we will never entirely succeed. Jesus is saying, "I wish you could be perfect," or "try to be perfect." This definitely is not burdensome, for it takes into account the reality of the human situation. However, Greek had separate tenses for command and desire, and the language in Matthew is definitely that of command. The second approach is not honest with the language of Matthew. The first is not honest with the human situation. We are left to choose between a rock and a hard place. As a third solution, some Christians have tried to merge the two positions. The argument goes as follows. Jesus commands us to be perfect. However, we cannot be perfect. Hence, this is a hyperbolic command. That is, it is a command for an ideal world, not for the real one in which we live. However, this solution makes Jesus an incompetent teacher who gives irrelevant instruction and who concludes a class by undermining everything he has said so far. The choices presented by these solutions are unacceptable, for they force us either to be dishonest or to think of Jesus as incompetent. There must be a way out. And what could it be? Not so fast. You will have to wait for the next video in the series for a hint at the answer.